No usual intro for this one. Allow me to preface this by saying that no, I am not here to try and defame or slander anyone on the Forsaken dev team or anyone else I bring up in this video for that matter. I am simply here creating this video as a way to vent my honest concerns and frustrations with how the devs have and will continue conducting themselves in the face of any and everything that hurts their bottom line, that being money. Even though I am angry, I still do not condone any level of harassment towards anyone mentioned in this video. Okay? Okay. Now, on to it. Yes, this is about the dev team, and yes, the subject of this video correlates to a much more serious problem within the Forsaken community itself, but a good chunk of us already know exactly what causes this problem to continue happening. We already know that a disturbing majority of the Forsaken community is willing to side with a terrible person so long as it means their game gets to stay on the Roblox platform. We already know that as long as the devs keep jingling keys in the form of cosmetics in the face of their player base, nobody will ever speak up against the obvious problems with the Forsaken dev team defending Soul just as much as the community itself has. A solid portion of Forsaken fans and players with a functioning brain are aware of this, and yet there seems to be almost no actual conversation about anything even remotely similar to this being had whatsoever. The sheer amount of lies, subtle victim blaming, and general unseriousness the developers have had towards Soul still making profits off the same people who allegedly want nothing to do with her have not only caused several brows to be raised, but have also caused many people, myself included, to either consider giving up on or just outright give up on the game altogether. I don't know about anyone else watching this, but I personally would not want to have my name associated with a community so disgustingly indifferent towards the concept of actively giving their own money to someone as deplorable as Soul, whether she works on the game or not. If a community is so careless of such a blatantly obvious issue that they continue rewarding the devs with well over 100,000 or more concurrent player numbers, and even more of their own money being spent on mostly skins, all while 40% of this game's revenue continues going towards terrible people, why on God's green earth would I ever want to continue having my name or generally anything about me tied to such a dumpster fire of a community? Just for a brief moment, imagine if this happened with a game like Pillar Chase 2. Imagine if Pillar Chase 2's Recode update finally dropped, and with that came a ride-or-die-esque defending of a horrible person regardless of if they're on the developer team or not, from none other than developers like Blade Ninja. What would you reasonably expect that game's community to begin doing other than leave the game en masse and start publicly scrutinizing people like Blade? Further than that, why would anybody hold any level of sympathy for those who willingly ignore the problem and continue giving their own money towards that game's developers? If you think I'm being intentionally angry or abrasive for a character, I'm not. The devs' White Knight levels of unbiased support for Soul, as well as their unfathomable disdain aimed at the actual victims of Soul, genuinely infuriate me to no avail. And the fact there's a shocking amount of people in this game's community doing something similar to that, if not exactly that, especially sickens me to no end. And no, because I know for a fact someone, somewhere is going to comment this, it doesn't matter whether what she did was recent or not. The fact of the matter is that the Forsaken dev team is still in any kind of defense of the same person who for almost a year has been actively harming this game's development. Whether or not she's actually improving as they've told us, I have yet to see, but to be quite frank, and I'm sorry if this comes off as harsh, I do not believe them for a second. They've lied countless times before. Why wouldn't they lie countless times now? It especially doesn't matter whether you agree with me that the Forsaken devs seem to prioritize dishonesty over actual transparency or not. The issue right now is that nobody is really making any collective efforts to say anything about this, let alone call for the devs to start enforcing a better, more professional work culture. A lot of the more popular Forsaken content creators aren't uploading content on the game nearly as often as they once were, and the Forsaken community's general reaction to the defending of Soul seemed to be almost perfectly in line with the mindsets of absolute buffoons such as this fellow here. So, is this it? Is stuff like this going to cause the death of the game sooner than later? Will any of this ever change? How much more often do controversies tied to this game need to pop up, and how much more are we as a community willing to take? How many more flashbacks to the time Soul stole money from the Earth Day charity event? How many more PR level excuses from the devs will we endure before we've had enough? How many times do we need to bash the fact that Soul should have been gone long ago into the thick skull of Forsaken's community before people actually start taking action? How much longer until something gives and we finally band together as a community and scream from the mountaintops that something needs to be done about the dismal state of Forsaken in its entirety? None of this should be okay, especially when a dev team as controversial as Forsaken's continues making the conscious decision to represent themselves in such a depressingly and despicably dishonest way. They have already been doing this actively in recent memory, with the game's main balancing dev, Kaiser, getting fired not because of their interactions with Soul, but because the developers were in fear of their image being smeared just enough to the point they couldn't get a Friday Night Funkin' collab into the game. Brownie points are all that matter to them, as long as something hurts their bottom line, which I'll say it until the end of time, that being money, only then will they take action. So forgive me if I sound like I want this game to die, or if I want to see the developers continue digging themselves an even deeper grave, but from where I sit, it really seems like the only thing left to do if we ever want to see this game and its developers change at all, is to hurt their bottom line should they continue doing this. And if not that, if that's too much of an extreme in the eyes of some people watching this, then perhaps the least we could do is get those with a much larger voice than I could ever dream of having to start speaking up against this kind of stuff. Those who have their own impact on the game entirely separate from whatever influence I have could pick up the torch and shine a whole new light on an already dark time in Forsaken's history. And assuming we don't get that torch lit, and people in the Forsaken community continue willingly doing nothing to stand against such a dark period of time, I fear there won't be much of anything to fight for in the future, so long as the Forsaken dev team continues seeing members of their team walk away from the project and communication between us and them grows more and more distant. As for what else potentially reinforces these kinds of problems with the devs, we can form agreements and disagreements around those concepts until the fat lady sings, but can we at least start? Some of us have, thank goodness. Hugh RBLX, for example, made a video criticizing the developers' bad work ethics as well as the work culture surrounding them. He even went to the degree of inviting the developers not to respond to his video, but to actually do something to fix the absurd morals in their workplace and by extension themselves. Sharky Leo, someone who used to be a steadfast defender of the devs, even made a video himself, pointing out just how bad the game itself has gotten recently, as well as, who'da thunk it, the issues the dev team have been having. He's even in the process of making a part 2 to this video, going in detail about how stupid the devs really think you and I, as Forsaken fans, are. And I highly recommend you go watch it the second it drops. Generally speaking, you name someone who's in or used to be in the Forsaken community, and there's a good chance they've openly spoken against the abysmal state of Forsaken as a whole. Just about any notable person you can think of has said something, whether it be about the state of the game, Soul receiving more money than the rest of the developers, the makeshift deal fiasco, the numerous excuses as we've been given as to why things are the way they are, etc. Just about all of us unanimously agree that there are problems, and I do mean it when I tell you that applies to the vast majority of us. Why aren't more people talking about this? It's hardly become anything daring or hot-takey to hold the opinion that the dev team for this game, whether intentionally or not, are insanely dishonest and tend to make promises they do not follow through with most of the time. And listen, we know developing a game, especially one as popular as Forsaken, is no easy task. We know that fixing all the problems the game currently has isn't as easy as the press of a big red button that reads, "Fix everything." We also know that expecting a small developer team to be on top of their game in the same way a big shot AAA game studio would be is foolish. Nobody is really asking for this, however. We just want a semi-steady flow of updates to come to the game without feeling like we can't go one day without the developers almost willingly getting themselves caught up in some kind of controversy. It seriously feels like this has been the case for a long time now, and yet the community is quicker to defend Hideko, plus any other developer that aids in the countless lies and misinformative statements and claims made by the developers themselves, instead of siding with the actual victims, who, need I remind you, are very real people who have been negatively impacted in one way or another by Soul. Now, I admit, I am harshly critical of this game's community. If there's anything you should know about me, it's that I don't exactly see eye to eye with a solid chunk of what I like to call the but my cosmetics crowd. That didn't exactly change when I saw them start outright proclaiming, "Stop talking about Soul, we're tired of hearing about her." So I'm not gonna sit here and act like a morally perfect, not at all flawed little angel. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I don't make much change myself through my scrutiny. I can only hope people will believe me when I say that it's never the act itself of banding together to clamor for improvement on all fronts that I ever want to discourage. That act is completely necessary and will absolutely bring more positive things to Forsaken than it would negative. Plus, this act is something that several people, myself included, want the devs to follow up on. It is something that there's actually high demand for. You know what there isn't high demand for, however? Even more gigabytes of skins getting crammed into this game. Cue the developers pointing fingers at each other, or just pointing fingers at actual victims, and even more poor handling of controversy, all while balancing issues, bugs, hackers, toxicity, and more endlessly plague this game. I don't know if I'm coming off as dramatic or not, but even if this game wasn't plagued with the issues I brought up earlier, the Forsaken dev team's way of handling backlash of any kind, whether it's in relation to the game or how they conduct themselves on a frequent basis, is in no possible way sustainable. It not only hurts their own reputation even further, but it also further destroys the trust many people had in them at one point, myself included. And you know what? The devs have completely destroyed any and all trust I had in them at this rate. As much as I want to have sympathy for them, I seriously feel like they've hit the final nail on their own coffin with this one controversy. Therefore, I think it's finally about time I jump ship. From this point forward, I will not be uploading any more Forsaken content, as I simply have no desire to do so, especially after everything that happened with the developers, the community, and the game itself. I'm done with the lies. I'm done with the victim blaming. I'm done with waiting months on end for something new to come to the game only for it to be broken or outright unplayable. I'm done with the community. I'm done with the developers. I am done with all of it. To any developers currently working on the game who might be watching this, I'll do what Hugh did with you guys. I do not invite any of you to respond to my video, as I don't reasonably expect any kind of response to come out of this, given my channel's size. I merely invite you to please fix yourselves, fix your lying problem, fix your unprofessional nature, fix your victim blaming. Basically, if not the game, fix yourselves. If not for my own sake as a former player of your game, then please, for the love of Christ, for somebody else's sake. And to anyone else watching this, thank you for sticking through all the way if you did. I do apologize for this video being as negative as it was, but believe me, with everything happening with Forsaken from the state of the game to a lot of what was said by the developers, I could not let any of this slip under my radar. The next video I have planned will hopefully be a lot more fun to watch, and I do hope to see you there once it's out. If you enjoyed this video, though, then I'd highly recommend subscribing and maybe even liking. And with all that said, I will see you all in the next one, and if I don't see you there, I'll see you when I see you. Take care, comrades.
We got someone that can attack from afar. Oh, I'm dead.
Oh, no.